Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel Code with Hafiz. My name is Hafizullah Masoodi, and in this video I'm going to show you how to solve the issue of message unauthenticated with Laravel Passport and Laravel Fortify. Now before everything else, I want to say that if you find this video useful, don't forget to hit the like button and write a nice comment also. And if you are new to this channel, hit the subscribe button too if you want more videos like this. Now I have this nice to-do list, a single page application that I'm going to use in this tutorial, and this application that I have is built with Laravel 9 and Vue JS 3. And for authentication I have used a Laravel Fortify, and for the API authentication I have used a Laravel Passport. If you want to check out how I built this application, I have provided the link to the playlist in the description of this video. Please find it there. And if you want to use only in the project, I have provided the link to the repository also in the description of this video. Please find it there. And if you want to use your own project, that's okay too. Now let's first log into the system and show you the message unauthenticated, that how it's going to work. So let's log in as admin and the password as password. So let's say never, and let's go to the task component, and for now you can see everything is working. Well guys, let's make this div or call MD a little bit bigger, because for now you can see it's scrolling and it does not fit the card. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code and let's go to resources, JS components and task component, and let's scroll to the top, and this is the call MD. So let's say 11 here, and for this one let's also say 11, and let's save it, and let's also make sure to run our yarn run watch. So in the terminal I'm already in the project directory, so let's say yarn run watch. It will compile all the changes. Now this being done, let's get back to the browser and let's hard reload. And yeah, now it looks much better. So guys, for now you can see everything is working, and if I open the inspect element and go to the console, we don't have any kind of errors. So let's check our API routes in our project in Visual Studio Code. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code again, and let me close this component, and let's go to routes api.php. And for now in here you can see nothing is, for example, secured. So let's create a group for it, guys. So let's say route : group, and let's say a parenthesis and brackets, and let's declare the middleware, which should be equal to another array which should take multiple middlewares. Well, for now we only want to declare one, which will be auth : API. Now in here let's put a comma, and let's say function parenthesis curly braces, and now let's put all of our routes inside this group route. Now this being done, let's get back to the browser and refresh. So let's go to the browser, refresh, and now you can see we still don't have any errors. But what if we upload our application to the real web server, or we host it in a real server? Well, as you know, it will throw you the message unauthenticated for all of your API routes, and especially when you are working with single page applications, all of your application will be broken and none of the routes will work. Now to fix this error, we need a third-party software, and we will use a Postman for it. So let's open Postman. Now if you don't have Postman installed in your system, please search for Postman in the Google and install it in your operating system, because without Postman we won't be able to troubleshoot the issue and fix it. So Postman has been opened. Now what I will do is copy the URL from the browser and let's go to the Postman again, and let's create a new HTTP request, and let's paste our URL here, and instead of tasks let's call an API route. So let's say API/get tasks, and I already have this route. If we check it, let's go to the Visual Studio Code. You can see I have this get tasks route. So for now that we are logged in into the system, as you can see in the browser, and if we send this request to our application, it should return something in here. So let's send it. Well, you can see it's returning HTML code. And to fix this problem, first of all, we have to pass a header, and we have to convert all of our API routes to JSON data. So let's go to the headers here, and in here let's declare another header which will be accept, and for the content or value let's say application/JSON. And if I send it now you can see it's returning the same message as we get in our real server. So to fix this unauthenticated message error, we need to pass another header with our API routes also, or specifically with axios requests, and that header should contain the API token which will be generated with Laravel passport. And this is not working because for now I have used Laravel Fortify. As you already know, with Fortify all the backend is already set up, and we didn't customize the backend. So in this case we don't have a way to create a token for the auth and assign it to the auth. Now we have to find a way to generate a token for the auth in the same time as the user logins to the system. So for that we have to redirect the login route to a customizable function that we will create in a moment. But before that, as you can see in here, we created this header of accept application JSON. Now let's do this first in our application, and then we will create the login function. So for this to accomplish, we have to create a middleware. So let's go to the terminal, and let's open a new tab here, and let's say php artisan make :middleware, and let's name it force to JSON, and let's press enter here. Now let's open this middleware. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and let's go to sidebar app http middleware and force to JSON. Now in here let's press enter, and let's get the request that is coming through the function, and let's say arrow headers arrow set, and in here we have two parameters. First one is the name of the header, and next one is the value. So let's say application/JSON. Now this being done, let's assign or declare this middleware into our application. So let's go to the kernel.php, which is under HTTP folder. So in here let's open it, and first of all let's import our middleware in this protected middleware array. So what I will do is copy this one, so let's duplicate it, and let's bring it to the bottom, and instead of this one let's say force to JSON. Now let's copy this class because we also wanna create this middleware in our route middleware. So let's scroll down. This is our route middlewares array. So at the bottom let's say JSON.force, and let's equal it to the class that we copied. Now this being done, what we can do is now we can use this middleware for our API routes. So let's copy this, and let's close this one and this one too, and in here let's assign the middleware. Now that we have converted all of our API routes to JSON data, the next part is to customize the login functionality. So for that we have to first redirect the login route to a customizable function. And if we go to the login plate, So let's go to our resources, views, auth, login blade, and in here you can see for this form of login we have assigned this route of login. So let's customize this login route and send it to a customizable function. So let's close this one and let's open our web.php, and in here let's say route : post, and let's say slash login should be the URL, and it should go to a controller by the name of auth controller : class, comma, and inside that controller we will create a method by the name of authentication. And let's also give this route a name. So let's say name should be login. Now this being done, I want to do or create a couple of routes also. So let's press enter here and let's say route : get, and I want to create for the root directory, so slash, and let's say function curly braces, and for this root directory I want to return a redirection, so let's say return redirect, and I want to redirect to the route login. And now that we have returned this root URL to the login, we have to customize this other route. So I want to send this one to the home URL, and let's also give this route a name. So name should be home. And the next thing that I want to do is redirect the user after authentication to this home route. So we can do that in our route service provider. So let's go to sidebar and HTTP providers, and at the bottom route service provider, and in here for now you can see it's only a slash, so let's make it home. Now let's save this file, and we don't need this one, so let's close it. Now the next part is to create this controller and then create the function. So let's go to the terminal and let's clear first, and let's say php artisan make : controller, and let's name it auth controller, and let's press enter. Let's open this controller now. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code and HTTP controllers and auth controller. Now at the very first, let's import some of the files at the top. So let's press enter here, and let's use first of all the user model, so app / models / user model, and next let's use auth. Now let's create the authentication function, so public function authentication, and it should take a request from the forum, so request and curly braces. Now the first thing that I want to do is validate the user data which is coming from the forum, which is the email and the password. So let's say request arrow validate and then an array, and first let's check for the email, which should be required, and also I want to check if it is an email, and next let's check for the password, and for password let's only check if it is required. Now this being done, what we can do next is let's save the result of this validation into a variable, and let's name it credentials, and now let's check for the credentials. So in here let's say if $credentials, or before that guys we want to check it if the auth attempt. So let's say auth : attempt, and we want to attempt with the data that we have inside the credentials. So in here let's say curly braces, and if the data is available in the database, and if it is true and it matches all the credentials of the user, so then we want to generate the session. So let's say request arrow session, and let's say arrow regenerate. And after that, what I want to do is get the user data from the user model. So let's say user should equal to user model colon where email. So let's say email is equal to request arrow email, and I want to get the first row. And after this, what I want to do is execute a shell command. And now is the time that we will create our token and put it into the session. So to execute the shell command, we can use a function which is shell exec _exec, and inside here the command that I want to execute is php /artisan and passport install. And what this will do is create a client each time a user, for example, logins to the system. So this being done, let's press enter. Now let's create our success token. So $success token should equal to $user arrow create token and then arrow access token. And now this being done, let's save it to the session. So session parenthesis arrow put, and let's name it token, and the value should be $success token. And finally, we want to return the redirection. So let's say return redirect parenthesis arrow, and let's say intended, and it should be home route. Now this being done, after the if statement, if the credentials do not match, what I want to do is return or throw an error. So let's say return, and let's return back to the same route. So arrow and with errors and parenthesis bracket, and then let's say email should equal to, let's say, the provided credentials do not match our records. Oh, we don't need a semicolon in here, we need a comma. Now this being done, we can now try our code if it works or not. So let's go to the web browser and let's refresh, and let's first log out from the system, and it's not logging out, or it did log out, guys. So let's go to the /URL, and now you can see it's redirecting us to the login, and let's try to login. So let's try to login as admin, and password is password. Now it says auth controller does not exist. Oh, I didn't import the auth controller in the route file. So let's go to the web.php, and at the top let's say use app /http /controllers /auth controller. Save it. Let's get back to the browser, let's refresh, or let's go back and let's log in again. Well, let's log out. It's not working just fine. Yeah, now let's try to log in again, and password is password. Oh, we didn't declare the name for the token, guys. So let's get back to the Visual Studio Code, and in here, while we are creating the token, we have to give it or assign a name for it. So let's name it my API-token. Now let's save it, let's refresh again, and now the CSRF token mismatch, and it's already login. So let's log out, let's get back to the /URL, and let's log in again. Now you see it's working just fine, and this warning is because of the Vue Router. Now let's fix this one too. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and let's go to sidebar, and resources JS components, or not components, app.js, and we just need to fix this route. So in here let's say home. Now let's save it and make sure your yarn run watch is running to compile all the changes. So now let's refresh, and now you can see it's already working. And now we have other warnings, and these are related to the router link. Now let's fix this one also. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code and let's go to the home blade, and if you scroll down to our router links, and yeah, these are the router links. So for this one we also need home. Now let's save it, let's get back, refresh, and now it looks much better. So let's go to the tasks, and now you can see our data is working. But let's check our token if it's in the session or not. And to check the token, let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and in our home blade at the bottom we have this script tag. So in here let's console log, and let's create JSON encode data, so parentheses and then curly braces and then 4 exclamation marks, and inside here let's say JSON underscore encode, and we want to check for the session, and inside the session we want to get the token. Now let's save it, let's get back to the browser, refresh, and now you can see we have our token. And now what if I copy this token from here? So let's copy this, and let's get back to the Postman, and if I send it now, you can see it's still unauthenticated. But let's assign a header here, and let's name it authorization, and it should be bearer and space token. And now if I send it, you can see it's returning our data. And if I uncheck the authorization header now, send it again, now it says unauthenticated. Now that this works in Postman, we have to find a way to assign this authorization with the value of token for all of our axios routes. So to do this, let's get back to the Visual Studio Code, and we can do it in this same script. So instead of console logging the token, let's say window.token should equal to the session token. Now that we have assigned the token globally, we can go to the bootstrap.js file, and in here we will create a function for it. So let's say function, and let's name it logged in, and inside this function what I will do is check for the window.token and curly braces, and if we have the token, let's get the token. So let success token should equal to window.token, and then we wanna set the axios headers. So let's say axios dot defaults, axios dot defaults dot headers dot common, and it should equal to curly braces, and the header name is authorization, and the value that we want to assign, well, let's use template literals. So in here let's say bearer, and let's say $ curly braces, and now we can use our success token object. Now let's terminate it also, and outside the if statement, if we don't have any token, we want to return. Now let's also run this function. So outside the function at the bottom, let's say logged in, and to check if it works, what we can do is inside this if statement, let's return the success token, and for this logged in function, what we can do is console.log, and we want to log the function. So let's go to the web browser, let's refresh again, and you can see we still have the token. Now that we have fixed the login for the Laravel Fortify and Laravel Passport, and we also fixed the message unauthenticated for the real server. Now it's time to fix our logout function. So for that, let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and we will do the same as we did for the login. So we will redirect the logout route to a customizable function. So let's go to the web.php, and in here let's press enter after the login, and let's say route : post, and let's say /logout, and it should also go to the auth controller : class /logout function, and let's name it logout, and we also want to declare a middleware for it, so it should be auth, because the logout route is only for the users who are logged in to the system. Now this being done, let's create this logout method in our auth controller. So let's go to auth controller, and at the bottom let's say public function logout, and we also have a request coming from the forum, so curly braces. Now before writing any code in here, let's go to the home plate and to our logout forum. So let's scroll to the top, and this is our logout anchor tag, and at the bottom of the anchor tag you can see this is the form that submits to the logout route. Now what I want to do is send a hidden input field with this form also, and because I want to manipulate that input field with the Vue JS, because I want to send the token ID in that hidden field or input field, so for that case we need to create a logout component. So in here let's say logout hyphen component. Now let's create this component. So let's go to the sidebar, and in our components folder let's right click new file, and let's say logout component.vue, and let's declare our template tags, and at the bottom let's declare our script tags, and that's all for now. Now let's assign this component in our app.js. So let's go to app.js. First of all we need to import it, so let's say logout component, and let's copy this, let's paste it here, and now let's assign it to the app variable or object. So at the bottom we are already assigning this loader component, so let's duplicate this one, and this one should be for the logout component. Now this being done, let's get back to the logout component, and in here let's first create an input field which should be hidden, and let's give it a name which should be token underscore ID, and let's give it a v-model which should be also token underscore ID. Now in our export default let's return our data, so data curly braces return, and let's create the token ID object which is empty for now, and let's create a method. So inside this methods, well guys, you already know that we have access to the token because we have assigned the token globally. So if I create a mounted hook here and console log the window.token, well, let's put our comma also in here, and if we go to the browser now, if I refresh, you can see it's returning the token. Well, let's remove the other token. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and let's go to bootstrap.js, and let's remove this console log from here, and yeah, that's all. Now let's get back to the logout component. Now you can see we have access to the token. So what I want to do is get the token data from this token, because if we go to the phpMyAdmin, so let's go to localhost phpMyAdmin, and let's go to Todo App, and let's go to this OAuth access tokens. You can see we have this one token with this ID, user ID, client ID, with the name, scopes, and revoked. So what I want to do is get all of this data from this token that we have, and we can do that using JavaScript. So let's go to the logout component, and I want to create a method for it. So the name for the method should be parse to JSON, and it should take a token value. So let's say token value, and let's say curly braces, and first of all we wanna split the token from the dot. So let's say let base 64 URL, so URL should equal to a token value, and then let's say dot split, and we wanna split in dot, and then we wanna get the second element. Now this being done, let's create another variable. So let base 64, we should equal to the base 64 URL, and then we want to replace. So let's replace, and let's say slash hyphen slash g comma, and we want to replace let's say plus, and then dot replace again. So again let's say slash underscore slash and g comma, and let's say slash. Now this being done, now we can get the payload or JSON payload. So in here let's say let JSON payload, and let's say it should equal to decode URI component, and in here let's say window dot a to b, and we wanna get the data from the base 64, and let's say split. In here we want to say split, and we want to split in an empty string. So let me close the sidebar, and after that we want to map this string. So for the map, let's say we have a variable, let's name it C, which should equal to a function, and inside this function we want to return mod, and we want to concatenate it with the, let's say parentheses 00, and let's say plus c dot character code at, so code at 0, and let's say dot to string, and let's say 16, and after that in here let's say dot slice, and let's say -2. Now at the very end let's join everything. So in here before one parenthesis, so let's say dot join, and we want to join the string. So this being done, guys, let's create another variable. So let's say let token data should equal to JSON dot parse, and let's say JSON payload, and if we return the token data, so let's return the token data here. It should be token data, and in the mounted in this console.log, let's say this dot parse to JSON, and we want to pass window.token. Now if I save it and get back to the browser, refresh, now you can see we have the token data. And if you check out this JTI, which is JavaScript token ID, which starts in 09 and ends in C9. So if you go to the database, and you can see it starts in 09 and the end is C9. Now I hope you understand all of this. So now what we can do is send this token ID in that hidden input field. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and in here what I will do is remove the console log. So let's remove it, and let's say let token ID. So let's say token ID should equal to this part of the code, and then let's say this dot token ID. So token underscore ID should equal to the token ID. Now this being done, guys, now we can move to the auth controller and see if it returns the token ID or not. So let's go to the auth controller, and in this logout function what I will do is return $request, and I will return the token underscore ID. Now let's save it. Let's get back to the web browser and let's refresh, and let's minimize this, and if I log out, it says too few arguments for the logout. And if we go to the Visual Studio Code, let's see what is the problem. Oh, we have to declare the request in here. Now this being done, let's go back, and let's go back one URL, refresh, and if I log out now you can see it's returning the object. Well, it should not be an object, guys. Oh, I know why it's an object. If we go to the Visual Studio Code and logout component, we are not getting the GTI. So instead of token ID here, what we can do is we can say token data here, and in here now we can say token data dot JTI. Now let's save it. Let's get back to the browser, and if we refresh now, you can see it's returning the token. Now what we can do is, guys, we can use this token to log out the user, and we will revoke this token, because after a user logs out, so the token should not remain in the session and we must revoke it. So let's get back to the Visual Studio Code and let's go to the auth controller, and now we must write our logout code in here. So let's remove this return, and instead of return, let's get the user first. So user should equal to auth colon user, and because we want to use the DB query builder, so at the top let's use DB, and now in the logout let's say DB table, and the table that we want is auth underscore access underscore tokens. Let's say arrow, so in here let's say arrow where ID, and this is the token ID, so we want to match it with the request arrow token ID. And then we want another where clause, so where let's say user underscore ID matches with the user arrow ID, and then we want to say arrow update. So what we want to update is the revoked field, so let's say parentheses and brackets, and now let's say revoked should equal to 1. And if you check it now, let's go to the browser, and for now you can see it is 0, so we want to make it 1. Now this being done, now we can say auth colon logout, and let's also declare some parentheses here, and then we want to say request arrow session, and we want to say arrow invalidate, and let's duplicate this one, and this next one should be, let's say regenerate token, and next we want to say return redirect, so redirect, and let's say arrow, or not arrow, guys, inside the redirect we can just say /login. Now I think we are good to go, so let's get back to the browser and check our code if it works. So let's go to the browser and let's go back one URL, let's refresh, and let's try to log out. So I will log out, and you can see it redirected us back to the login, and if I check the token, now it has been revoked. So guys, this was a long video, and I hope you now understand why were we getting the unauthenticated message while we were uploading our application to the server when we are using Fortify and Passport along with each other. Now you saw it was all about the two headers, which was the access header and the authorization header. Now that's everything you need to know for Laravel Passport and Laravel Fortify authentication. And this being done, our video has come to an end, and I hope this was useful for you. And if so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and a nice comment also. And if you are new to this channel, don't forget to smash the subscribe button also if you wanna see more videos like this. Now thanks for watching. See ya in the next video.